Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Phase 2 of our Coke factory. That's right, we're sticking with the name Coke. Some of you guys had your minds in the gutter, but I, of course, meant Coca-Cola. You know, going with that kind of color scheme, and that's because of the volume of petroleum coke we're making. So, this is Phase 2, as mentioned. We've done Phase 1, that's in the previous video, which will be linked in the description, the cards, or wherever, if you have missed it. So, effectively, Phase 1 was setting up everything that's here in front of me. So, we're on the west coast of the map at the moment, where there's 4 oil deposits. We're using all of that oil and sending it into a series of refineries. 30 rubber refineries here in front of me, 30 plastic refineries just to the left, and then the equivalent of 22.5 petroleum coke refineries. Why equivalent? Well, I've actually gone with a little bit more and underclocked them to 83.3%. So there's 27, I think, in total. 9 per row, 3 rows. The reason for that is their output is 100 each, and that just makes things a little bit easier. We'll get to that very shortly, actually. So that's basically what's in place for us right now. So we're tapping every oil node. All the liquid is sort of done and in place. We have our valves, our fluid buffers, everything should be hopefully one-to-one workout. We're using every drop of heavy oil residue and every drop of oil that we can. We still need to set up the outputs for the actual plastic and rubber, but that's fine. We'll get to that later. So, what are we going to be doing today? Well, let's take a look at the to-do list on the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to be focusing on the placement of foundries. So, at the stage that we're in the chain, if you want to think of it this way, we start with oil, we refine it, we get some products, plastic and rubber, then we get our heavy oil residue. We're bringing that over and turning that into petroleum coke. Now with the 27 machines I have, that's 2,700 petroleum coke per minute, right? So 100 per machine, 27 machines, pretty easy. So 2,700 per minute, that needs to be matched with 2,700 iron ore per minute that needs to be brought into the factory, which we're going to do via rail. So today we're going to unlock the milestone for trains, and we're going to set up a link out to this area in the desert where there's a bunch of iron and just feed it straight into this factory. So it's going to be what I'm calling a monorail, just a local single track railway bringing stuff in here. So if you've never done rail before, this will be super simple because there isn't even going to be any signals, right? So it's going to be really easy. I'm sure anyone could do that, to be honest. In future, we'll set up a double rail network that goes around between transport hubs, and we'll talk about signals and junctions and things like that then. But for now, we're going to keep it dead simple, and I'll show you how to get dead straight tracks and how to get nice turns and stuff like that if you're ever curious. Alright, so anyways, we're going to pull in the iron ore, mix it with the petroleum coke in a bunch of foundries, and that's going to give us a bunch of steel ingots out. Now, I'd actually made a slight error in the previous diagram of the episode. The numbers 1,200 and 2,400 that are coming out of the foundry, they were inverted. They were the wrong way around. So I fixed that now. So 2,400 is going into 40 steel beam constructors. I'd previously said 80. And 1,200 is going into 80 steel pipes. So their outputs are still correct, 800 and 600 respectively. I just had a little error on the diagram there, but, you know, that's why I didn't give out the save until now, because I didn't want people maybe getting confused or doing stuff wrong when I'd outlined it until I'm done with it. But the blueprints and everything is available, and yeah, let's just get started now. So what we're going to have to do is start with the foundries. I've been trying to update my blueprints list because there's so many of these ones in here, just random test blueprints. I don't even know what that is. Oh, that was for the dam in the copper factory, actually, yeah. So it keeps crashing the game when I remove them, so I've been trying to remove them outside of the game, and it's a bit of a process because some of them are actually good that I'm trying to hold on to. But everything in the menus have been organized. Now I've got one called train infrastructure. We've got monorail sections and things we'll be building with that. It's a fairly simple, super simple little blueprint. I want it to be kind of minimalist. Anyways, what we're looking for is machines. New category now called machine combinations. So stacked foundry. There's 4 of them. It says C steel, right? So that's coke steel, I guess is my reasoning for that. Kind of ran out of words. But yeah, it's for the recipe, the alternate recipe that takes in coke to make steel rather than the standard steel recipe. And then we have A, B, and C. These are going to kind of lock together. So I need 3 of each. Right, so yeah, so A, B, and C, we've got 3 of everything, and I have everything in the inventory ready to go. I'm standing on a bunch of stacked containers. I've moved everything over from over there and brought over some even more stuff for everything we need to do with the trains and things like that. I've also just built a little makeshift platform here to help me get up. if I want to jump up there, we can just take one of these things and just kind of land up here and just get up a little bit quicker. Obviously, we'll do staircases and hypertubes and things like that in the future, but for now, just hopping up is kind of fun, actually. Right, so these are the refinery blueprints we had in the last episode. They may have been updated correctly. There was a slight error with them before. Again, just one of the pipes was Mark II. It only needed to be Mark I, so not an error that would break anything really, just slightly less efficient, I suppose, in terms of wasting materials. But anyways, this blueprint came with a merger at the front. So we've got 3 machines tied together, and we've 3 on a single row, and we have 3 rows in total, right? So 1, 2, 300 petroleum coke is going to be coming out here. So what we want to do is grab this and send this straight up. Now what I'm going to do even before that is just mark these and delete them so I know where I'm coming up. I'm just going to do that for each one of these, and then we'll jump up on top and drag the belts up, because this is going to be really important with how we align where the foundries are going to go. Nice. All right, cool. Okay, so in order to orientate this properly, I'm just going to grab a standard lift here just temporarily, and we'll get the ball rolling on the first one here. So, in fact, it might be easier to start from this end and work our way down. So let's just grab this, bring this all the way up to here, just so that we can see that it's aligned with where it should be. Same with here. And we'll just do the same here. Don't mind that it's a Mark I. We're going to be deleting them in a moment. It's just to orientate ourselves. Alright, so I'm just going to throw this underneath, as we do, because our blueprints are going to be raised. The blueprints are built with a floor hole in mind, and until we get vertical nudging, this is what we got to do. Right, so let's begin. So we're going to start with, if we start at the far end here, we'll start with C. I guess we'll start with A, make things make sense. Right, so starting with the A blueprint. The reason it's called, well, I guess we'll just pop it down, then you'll see why it's called A, B, and C. So we look at the bottom bit that we've just carved out. We'll lock it in place by pressing H, nudge it forward. We want to nudge it so that it's in line with where the thing we just put down is, right, the lift. And that looks like it's in line right there. Now what we can do, just very quickly before it even builds, just get rid of that. It doesn't need to be there anymore. And now we're aligned, okay? So that's our first section. We're going to do the B section, then the C section, and then I'll just basically explain the differences between them. So B, look at the bottom again, turn on default mode. This one might be a bit tricky. No, that's okay, actually. And just nudge it into position so it's literally overlapping the one that we just put there. And then we need C, this one here. Yeah, are we looking good? I think we are. Right, so these should be aligned with each other. I'm just going to delete those lifts now. And this is what we're left with. And I'm also just going to cover up the floor, and I'll cover up the roof down below a little bit later, just so that we can get a nice clear view of what's happening. Alright, so remember I said that iron is going to be feeding into this factory, okay? So the iron is going to be coming in from over there via rail. So the iron deposits are way off in the distance to the north. A train's going to pull them in straight this way, and then we have to get the iron off the trains and filter them down these rows. So what this is doing is we have a central lift here, Mark IV, that's taking up the 300, or it will be, taking up the 300 petroleum coke per minute. It's going right into there. It's then splitting once to be 150 and 150, and then splitting again to be 75 into the machine, and then 75 up into the machine up there, right? So this is a blueprint with 4 foundries in it. Just 4 foundries, and each one is taking 75. So splitting 300 4 ways gives you 75, and that's why we have 3 splitters out the front output here. So what's going on with the rest of it? Well, very simply, we have a belt traveling in this way, 3 belts, as you can see. One which is dedicated for this particular blueprint, the middle one, which will be dedicated for this one, and the top belt, which is dedicated for this one. So this is why it was called A, B, and C. They're just slightly different. A is just the belt that is a bit further down. B is the belt in the middle, and C is the belt that's on top. So all we got to do now is really just link these together. Like so. Link that one together. That should be pretty much all good for them. Do we have to do anything else? I don't think so, actually. I think that is it. It's as easy as that. It's actually pretty easy. We'll have to hook them up, obviously, to get their iron ore later. Now, each of them are taking in, each group, I should say, just like they're taking in 300 petroleum coke, they're taking in 300 iron ore as well. I've got a little method of how we're going to divide that up a little bit later also when we talk about the mines. But yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that. So we're just going to put down the next ones as well now. So I'm just going to keep following that method. And that'll be... I think I'll probably connect those beams together up on top and things like that. But for now, having a little gap is fine. And yeah, let's just connect these up down here. So this kind of design is sort of inspired by the Iron Factory. You know, you'll probably see some sort of through line with a lot of my designs between different factories. And also, when I get an idea and I like it, I'll probably use it again and modify it just ever so slightly. So I'm going with this idea of stacked machines up above each other on a loose frame. And then we kind of connect them with these steel frame floors. And we'll have a walkway that goes between them, things like that. So I think it can actually look really good. I was kind of doubting it when I first did it in the Iron Factory, but then when the Iron Factory was all said and done, had like all the proper lighting and signage and stuff like that in there, I was like, this is really cool. So yeah, I'm going to use it again here and hope that we can kind of mold it into something that looks great once it's really totally done. Now, it goes without saying that all of these blueprints are, of course, added for free in the description straight away from when this episode goes live. They'll be in the description, whatdarrenplays.com/satisfactory, and you can see the floor plan as well for the factory. So if you want to gauge where these should be placed and use the specific same blueprints, it's all there for you. Alright, so what we're left with is just some neat little floor holes placed right above these mergers next to the refinery. So we just want to switch to Mark IV conveyor lifts and just snap them on in. And that should be our foundries and our petroleum coke and everything now completely done. We just have to get the foundries the iron they need. Let's see if we can hop here for a sec. Bonk. Yeah, so we just have to get the foundries the iron they need, which basically means doing trains. So I think we can actually mark this off the milestone list straight away. It was pretty quick. So that's foundries basically done. They're all in position now, just awaiting receiving iron ore, and obviously being hooked up to power and stuff like that. Oh, that's interesting. It looks like on this blueprint, I forgot to hook up power. But on those two, I didn't. That's weird. Anyway, yeah, I'll have to make a note of that. It seems every episode I'm doing something, like forgetting one little piece of a blueprint. But yeah, I'll get to it. Alright, so yeah, that's going to be foundries done. We'll take that off the list. Next up is doing the actual milestone itself. So I have to go all the way back over to our grassy fields area where the hub is, and we'll find out what's needed for that milestone because I can't remember. Pop that in and get our trains unlocked. Alright, I have arrived. I've got almost everything I need. I'm gonna need some steel pipe though. Well, I'm close to the steel factory, so that shouldn't be too bad. So 50 computers, 100 heavy modular frames, 500 steel beams, and some steel pipe. Right, basically, I always just go to the parts factory to retrieve any materials I'm missing, because this place gets delivered so many different things. In fact, I actually need a bunch of this encased industrial beams, so I'm just going to steal it. Might slow down the factory a little bit, but it'll be fine. Going to need that for the constructors later on, and steel pipe as well as here. Should we just fill up? I reckon so. Why not? Alright. It's so eerie to see all the cars here waiting. I'm just going to deploy a little truck, or explorer I should say. Let's get moving. Alright, with steel pipe in hand. Sounds a bit weird. We should be good to go. Monorail train technology, ready for launch. I didn't actually realize it's called monorail train technology. I thought it was being somewhat fun calling it monorail. Alright, so with that, we now have electric locomotives, freight cars, the train stations themselves, the freight and fluid platforms, an empty platform, and the signals. Awesome. Great. Alright, so I'm standing up on a little lookout tower right now. I thought it'd be good to get a bit of height so we could actually see what we're doing. It's a bit tough to build down on the bottom when you're doing rail, but you might have to if you want to keep your rails straight. So I thought I would just touch on that really quickly. So we're going to be starting here and then building all the way out to roughly out that direction right there where those palm trees are, or the equivalent of. But first off, we're going to build a platform that starts inside of here. So, in thinking about this, the way I'm going to do it is build a line that runs all the way there and then rotates around and hits a station on this side. And then that station's going to then rejoin onto the single track that goes all the way back out that way. So that's the plan. So in order to do that, we have our railway here. Now, people often struggle with getting rail to be aligned because when you build off of it, it just naturally sort of has this curve to it. Even if you're like quite straight, let's say you're pretty straight, and then you try to straighten back up, it's almost impossible then, even though I'm aiming at the center the entire time, to keep it straight, right? So you have to start from a good foundation of basically being 90-degree angles and straight from the very beginning. Otherwise, you'll always have these tiny little curves in there that can be just a bit of a pain to explain how to get rid of, right? So what we'll do is, there's a golden rule that we're going to employ here, basically, which we'll get to in just one second. But if we just look at where our center crosshair is, the little build icon, and focus that on the center / edge of an actual foundation, now if we just always stay in the center of that foundation, we'll always be aligned centrally with it. It's a lot of centers, but you know what I mean. Like if we were off by a little bit, it wouldn't quite line up. But if we just stay in the center and we go as far as we can, now we've got hopefully a nice straight railway. So we'll just build on from that now. Now it's center aligned. It can't really go wrong as long as I continue to keep it in the center, which is what I'm going to do. And we'll curve it down here now in just one sec. Alright, so right to there. I didn't realize that rails actually take pipe as well. Didn't actually know that. It's a first for me. Right, so I want it to be able to start turning here. So 1, 2, 3. So we'll bring it to here. Okay, so here's the golden rule I was kind of talking about. It's kind of like a rule of 3. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's 3 foundations in each direction. This is how we do like a perfect 90-degree angle. It's quite a sharp turn. The trains can do it no problem in the game. It's not really an issue for them. If you don't mind sharp turns, then this is the way to go. If you want more rules about how to do angle turns, you know, it's sort of similar principles, but if you follow the diagonal sort of points on foundations, you can kind of curve into them that way. There's a bunch of rules about it. I could spend super long detailing that. I might do it when we get to the double rail tracks, but for now, I'm just going to use a harsh 90-degree turn. So starting here at the very edge, and we count out to 3, but we go to the center of the third one, so the center, and then we go forward 3, but we don't go to the center, we go all the way to the edge. That's how we get a perfectly 90-degree rotated railway line, I guess. Couldn't think of a word for it. So we'll just commit to that. Now you'll notice, if we take get a bit further away, well, it's not actually doing it. Maybe we have to get even further, but you'll notice that the game will unload the rail a little bit, and it might not look like it's straight. But if you kind of walk up to it and it fully loads in, then you see that it is a really, really nice curve, okay? So we're going to do that again. We have to go around 90 degrees now the opposite way. So again, so 1, 2, 3. So this is our third foundation out. And then we go 3 this direction. And this should be our spot right here. As long as we're in the center, that's going to be a nice U-turn, basically, right? So you can see that just there for a second. It looked like there. It's not quite straight, but if we just look at it at the appropriate angle and make sure it loads in, it's correct. So that's it. It's as easy as that. All right, nice little mini tip there for you. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you get like this quite sharp but functional and aligned 90-degree angle. And that's allowed us to create our U-turn. Okay, so from here is where we're going to start the actual railway. Now, unfortunately, if we want to do platforms, you have to put down the station first. Now, I'm going to do 5 platforms. Every platform is 2. So 1, 2. Well, that basically just means we have to go all the way up to 10, right? Okay, so these are going to be the 2 that are going to have the station on it. And again, we should just make sure that this is center aligned. Lock it in place so that we make sure that we're center aligned, everything looking good. It's 2 foundations in length, so we're totally fine here. Commit to that. If we press E, we can then break out the freight platforms. Now we're unloading into the factory, so we want them facing in that way. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's actually now aligned with where our rail connects. And it's as easy as that. We're connected now. It works. Now these are to be unloading, so we just make sure we go to it and hit unload on each of these. Alright, so now that the Coke Factory import station is down, we're going to go out another 10 foundations. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 10 would be, the end of 10 would be here. And that's just the length of one full train. We don't have to do this, but I just think it might look a bit nicer this way. Alright, and we're nice and dead straight. We're just going to do the same thing, right? So 1, 2, and 3. So this would be our center point. And then we go 1, 2, and 3. Right, so we're 1, 2, and 3. We're in the center, so nice even 90-degree angle there. No problems. I'm going to delete this now. Just get rid of this section. And from here, we'll go 1, 2, and 3. And then 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to be ending here. Right, again, nice and straight. Perfectly good. This can now connect into, well, connect all the way to the edge. Haven't built our bridge yet, but we'll just connect it to the edge. Just want to make sure that that's aligned also. Almost was a little bit off there. Oh, I can't nudge and I can't fly here for a second, so hang on. There we go. Yeah, looking good. Let's commit to it. And then finally, we'll grab this bit and snap it on here. So the rule of the game basically is that you can only build junctions where you actually have like connection points on your rail line. So if I did a rail line that's super long there and I'm trying to hook a rail line, you know, from this direction into the center, I can't. I can only snap to the sides, right? To the snap points that I've actually created myself. So you can't snap into the center. You could cross through it actually, I guess, but I don't think that logically will really work. So yeah, just thought I'd explain that. So doing that, the game knows that there's two things connecting into this one section. And so we have a signal. Now we can flip the signal ourselves by pressing E, but the train will just know automatically, based on where it's going, which way to turn in. So train stations obviously have a facing direction. That's what the arrow here on the symbol means, right? So we're facing out that direction. So our trains are going to be looping in this way and around and then pulling up to here. You could do it whatever way you want. That's just the way I've chosen to do it. In fact, we could just build our little train now and add on our 1, 2, 3, and our 5 cars in total. Cool. Now, we need power, obviously, to be able to move this train, so we won't be able to move it right now, but at least we can kind of see the effect of it right there. Now we're going to build out our bridge and go to the other side. Once the other station's in place, we can talk about why I've done 5 freight carriages here and why we're going to be doing 5 over there. So I'm going to open up my blueprints. Again, we have a new train infrastructure section, so a monorail section. So I'll put this down as 4, 5, and 6. So 4. So basically, it's just a big concrete thing. And this will be a bit awkward to get in place, thanks to no vertical nudging again. But we managed it. That wasn't too bad. All right, cool. We've got one section right there. So with one done, just switch to blueprint mode now and just continuously build out. And we're going to build basically all the way out. Alright, cool. So we've got a super long bridge thing coming all the way out of the factory over there, and we're just ending it pretty much right before, I guess, the iron deposits that are here. So, interestingly, there's actually a hidden deposit right there that we are going to be using. So if we scan for iron ore, we'll actually see a little kind of like light node thing be dropped on it. So there it is. So that's a little secret for you, in case you didn't know. But if you go to satisfactorycalculator.com, you can just see all those things. So I'm going to run back down to the very end now and start placing in the pillar supports as we make our way back out here. Alright, now we're back. I'm going to get the railway again and just bring it as pretty much as far down as possible each time, and making sure it's right in the center and always aligned with an edge of a foundation. Just because, I don't know, it's nice to be neat, I guess, and have all the segments the same length. Probably makes things a little bit easier for the game. So you'll notice you can go pretty far, and then it says like you can't go any further, so I just push it back a little bit to the edge of the next foundation, and then we just snap again and continue it all again. Now, just while I'm doing this, sometimes people ask, you know, why ever use trains? You could just use belts instead, and that's totally true. If you would rather, you could just send, I guess, 9 belts down this way, if you prefer, and it's much less hassle, it keeps power lines more consistent, but it's not as fun, in my opinion. But if you're just about efficiency, there's no need to do this. This could just be a little bridge with 9 belts running along it, and it would be basically the same thing. Alright, just making my way back now. I want to do the pillar supports that go underneath this, and I'm running back because I haven't hooked the train station up to power, and therefore cannot roll the train forward and back just yet. But as you can see, got a nice and solid straight rail the entire way down, because I know some people struggle with that. So hopefully that helps. Right, so gonna hop down below. Try not to break my legs. And the next blueprint over is the monorail pillar top. So gonna start with this one, just one tile out, right? So it automatically snaps to the center of the blueprint that we've just put down. So I'm just gonna use that to my advantage. We're gonna move one space out, and then always have a gap of 1. So where it snaps, don't go with that one, go with the next one, and so on and so forth. Alright, so we obviously want to finish off the pillar, and if we just go with the middle section, that should just snap onto the bottom now. We can just make sure we bring that all the way down. It's a bit of a waste to do it there, so I won't waste the materials on that one. Alright, there we go. So a pretty simple look, right? But I think at scale, it can actually look kind of cool. It's almost like a little aqueduct. Because it is super simple. It's just a rail with concrete. But that's the idea. It's supposed to be like a monorail, right? So really, really simple rail. As opposed to a proper, you know, dual rail, long-running, like big freight carriages, that kind of thing. Something that would need a bit more space and support. Maybe has lights on it and things like that. I just thought for a monorail, let's make it super, super simple. So I'm quite happy with it. But we'll get a bit more creative in the future. Alright, so the next thing is going to be building out the platform and the station down on that side. But just to allow me to get to and from both of these areas a bit quicker, I'm going to actually power this place on. So in order to do that, we'll just grab a power line, send it out there temporarily, and power just transfers via the steel rails themselves, so you don't need to drag power lines further down. Alright, we are hooked up, which means we can do our first little train ride. Alright, all aboard the love train. Are we powered? We are indeed. So obviously this is super straightforward. I don't need to explain how you move the train in the game, but it's basically WASD. And off we go. We can hide the UI while we're in here, maybe pull the screen back a bit. Oh, we can't go any further back anymore now in this update. Alright, edge of the rail incoming. Oh, so anticlimactic, it just stops. I was hoping it would go off the edge. You can collide trains and they fly off with actual physics and stuff. Looks pretty cool. Alright, so there we are. The Coke train has pulled up. We now need to make a big platform and have this kind of hit up against the edge of it. So yeah, I reckon just start it somewhere here, just like we did over there, right? That's like the factory. So we'll just go with blueprints, architecture. Alright, I'm going to go with this one. This is our 2-layered foundation, 3x3. And it's got grip metal on the bottom, so we can have a sort of a ceiling below us, if that makes sense. Right, so we'll just extend this one down. I'm not sure how far this really needs to go. I'm totally winging this one, and I'll provide a floor plan after the fact. So it might be some mistakes as I'm doing it. But it's just going to be a super simple room that's taking in some of the materials and sending it up to some station, you know? Alright, so I've extended out the platform, so let's just continue the rail. I might have to push the train back just a little bit now. And we'll draw out the rail pretty much in the same way we did in the other place. With that kind of curve. So let's just grab this. And we'll take it all the way to the very edge. Keep it center aligned. Right, so I reckon this platform is as long as I'd want it. Yeah, I think it's fine. Alright, so we'll just continue this straight down, just like we did before, all the way down to the very edge, and then do our little rule of 3 turn, which would be here. So we want to create that gap, one foundation gap between it and the wall. So this would be 1, 2, and this is the center point of 3. 1, 2, and the edge of 3. Alright, and we're definitely in the center. Good. So again then, it's 1, 2, center point of 3, 1, 2, edge of 3. So knowing that, that's going to be up to 10. That's where all the freight goes. And then these two will be where the station goes. So let me just get our station up, and there we go. Alright, so we'll just make sure that that's center aligned also, like so. Switch it to a freight platform, aiming towards the deposits, of course. And we need 5 of them in total. Alright, so that should be aligned and hooked up. Just now need to do the same on the front end. So unlike the other station, where I came up by 10, I reckon I'll just turn this one right now. We could go a little further out. I don't know if we can do just one foundation, can we? No, it's too small. So yeah, in that case, we'll just go 1, 2, 3. Is that it? So that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 in the center. Looking good. We'll get rid of this now. 1, 2, 3. And that actually lines up really well if we could get it there. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, but let's just get rid of that. It seems to have some sort of issue with this. Don't know why. It shouldn't. Because this will be just dead straight anyway. Yeah, I'm not sure what the issue there was. This will just connect in and be straight. Just standing right on it. Just want to make sure. Yeah, looks good, right? So, this can then do what it did before, which is connect straight down to its buddy. and it drops a signal straight away. So if I was being a little particular, I could say that maybe this platform should go out a little further, because it's turning right before it hits the exit, which would be the gate, which might look a bit weird. I'd rather have a bit of a lead up to the gate. So we could get rid of that segment, maybe. Ah, you know what? It's all fine. I'll leave it. I'm just very particular sometimes. I'm happy enough with it. It's a short platform because all we're doing is just gathering up iron ore and shipping it up here into these 5 little areas. So now, well, I guess you know what? That means that the train link is now done. So I'm going to talk through the train link just really quickly and why it is the way it is. Alright, so now that our train link is complete, I've decided to name this the Coke Factory Outpost, because it is just a train station and a little platform that's dedicated to one factory. This is not going to be part of a wider network. We'll talk about all that in future. This is just a dedicated line for that factory over there. Right, so I thought I would just do a little explaining on why I've gone with 5 carriages and how trains work, just to give ourselves a bit of a baseline understanding on how trains work, and then we can modify it in the future. And if I say anything that's crazy, people can also correct me and inform me otherwise. But let's talk it through real quickly. So this is going to be the train station object, and these are the freight platforms. So when I say train station, I'm talking about the object, not the entire group of objects, okay? So this is the train station, these are the freight platforms. This is the locomotive, or the engine carrying the train, right? So the locomotive, and then the freight cars. Just so we get our vernacular correct here. Right, so a train station, a locomotive has to stop at a train station. It cannot stop at a platform. So for instance, if you wanted a train like this to pull up to just, let's say, well, let me get ahead of myself already. Let's say you've got something stored here that you wanted to go out of this particular point, right? Because for whatever reason, you've hooked up belts that way, and what's coming out of there, you want the train to stop just right in front of it to unload into that. You can't do that. You'd have to build the station with that in mind, or do a bunch of different configurations to make that happen. The natural order of things is that a locomotive will only ever stop at the station itself, right? The actual station. So it always parks up right below the sign and pulls up there. And then every subsequent freight car goes into every subsequent freight platform. Now, you can make rules to change things a little bit, so let's expand on that a bit further. But that's just our baseline straight away, which is the length of this locomotive and train is matching the length of the layout that I've gone for here. And that's on purpose, because every carriage is going to be finely tuned for the amount that it's going to be taking in. Alright, so we'll roll around, and then we'll just pull up to this little location here, as if we were pulling in automatically. Right, so train is stopped, and the unloading process would now begin normally. Now, if we wanted to mess with it, something you can do is you can go to the timetable, select the train that you're dealing with, and then edit its timetable, right? So we could say, I want you to go to the Coke Factory Outpost, and then go to the import, and we can configure what actually happens in here. So if we open the settings wheel, we can say, only leave the place when you're done unloading. Right, so we could do that, and then the default statement is or wait 15 seconds. You could also have and, so if we wanted to be only leave when you're empty, and you have to have waited a certain amount of time, you could do that. Or is usually typically a good one to go with, but whatever. Excuse me again, but that's just one of the rules. Now what you can do here is say, I only want you to load when you visit this particular station. So for instance, told it to go to the outpost, and we're going to say that I only want you to load AI limiters. So what's going to happen? Basically nothing, right? This train is not going to do anything because it'll pull up here, there's nothing it can load, and then it'll just beep and move along. And it'll just rotate between the two, never picking anything up because it can't get anything. But this is a way that, for instance, if you had a train that was 5 freight cars long, like our one, and you wanted to pick up stuff out of this one and out of this one, but none of the other 3, right? Maybe you've reserved the other 3 for going to some other station. That's a way of doing it, right? You can just go into the timetable menu and configure it to specifically pick up the things that you know are in the first 2 freight platforms. So that's pretty much as complicated as it'll ever have to really get for now. In future, we'll deal with double lines and trains that are going to be hitting multiple factories, crossing paths, and things like that. We'll use signals, but for this place, we don't need any of that. So what I'm going to do is we'll just open up the timetable for this train again. Actually, can't you I'm pretty sure you can. Yeah, you can. You can rename this train. So we could just call it Iron Delivery. I suppose I'll call it the coke iron delivery, just so we know exactly what it's doing. I'll edit that timetable right now. We'll just remove these for a second. So outpost, we'll start at the outpost, and then we go to the import. The default rules, we don't have to change anything, because it's if you don't set any rules, it's just going to do whatever it can, which is loading and unloading based on the platform rules that you set. So we'll just say save. That's totally fine. Now if we have a look at our platform, we've set this to load, so that's all well and good. I'll just set this to be on its merry way. So the way we do that, hop into the train. Well, you don't have to get in the train. I just have a habit of doing that. But on the same timetable screen, you can just go turn on self-driving. And then we just hop out. And it should just do its thing, given a little bit of time. Alright, so that was an interesting one. It wouldn't move, actually. So it seems like because I turned it on right at the edge of the train station itself, it just wouldn't move. But now it should be fine. I didn't change anything other than I just literally nudged it forward a bit and then just let it go. That should be fine. So it should just circle around forever, basically, until we actually feed this place with something. So that's basically how it works. Alright, so leaving the train stuff for now, we'll start setting up feeding this place with iron ore and talking about why I've done 5. Alright, so our train has just arrived. So it made its first little journey just fine. I've set it to do 5 seconds, so it'll only actually wait 5 seconds at each station if it doesn't load anything. And then it'll get moving. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and off you go. It's as easy as that. Alright, nice. So with that out of the way, the train link is now done and explained. I thought we'd talk about why we're using 5 freight carriage platforms here and carriages in general. It's basically because of how I want to divide up the ore going into the factory itself. We talked about how the foundries take in 300, 300, and 300, and that's done 3 times over. So we have 2,700 in total. And then there's 6 iron deposits where we are right now. So there's 3 right below me right down there. It's just some portable miners in that box for me. And then there's another 3 here as well. So we have 1, 2, and 3. There's also some coal here, actually. Anyways, so they're all normal deposits, which means with a Mark II miner, we're going to be able to get 300 ore per minute out of them. So 300 times 6 is 1,800. And we're looking for 2,700, so that means that we're not going to be able to provide enough iron ore here at the beginning. But what I might do is there's a couple pure nodes just further off that way. And temporarily, you might just drag over some belts and send them in here, just so that we can actually run the factory at full capacity straight away. Not that it's a big deal, I don't really need the steel, but just for the video and for fun, I think it'd be nice to be able to ramp up the factory fully. Now, when we do get Mark III miners, we can then cut those 2 off in the distance, and we could actually cut one of these off completely as well if we wanted to, because each deposit will be doing 600. So with 600 times 6, it'll be too much. 3,600. We'll only need 5. We'll actually only need 4.5, right? Which would be 2,700. So one of the deposits we could keep at half speed, or we could send an additional 300 ore somewhere else. So we'd have left over 900 ore basically that we're not using. And there's nothing really I can do about that. We're using all the oil that we can, so it would have meant changing a lot if we wanted to do something with it. But with 900 ore and the fact that there's coal here, maybe we could do something with that in future. Iron ore, that is. So we'll think about it. But I just thought I would explain that. So the idea behind 5 of the deposits and 5 carriages is that 600 can go into each one. Well, 300 into one of them and 600 into the others. And that way, what we can do is pull out an even 300. So 300 will come out, and 300 will come out of this one, and so on and so forth on the other side of the factory, of course, right? So that's the reasoning there. Hopefully that makes sense. I feel like I kind of did a poor job explaining that, but if we tie, long story short, if we tie one deposit to one thing, that's 600 per minute going in, and then we can make sure that we get that out. Now, the caveat to this is we have to make sure we add buffers, because unlike truck stations, when you're sending stuff into a train station, it'll pause when the train is loading and unloading. So you can actually never get the full amount of a belt out when you're talking about the max speed. So for instance, let's say that we had a belt of 780. This is a belt of 780 going in here. We'll never be able to get 780 out on the other side. It's just impossible. The reason being that the train will stop the belt when it's loading and unloading for a few seconds. So you're only ever going to get about 720 or 730 per minute. So I'd round it down personally to be 700. Anyway, that's why it's good that we're working with 600 going into each one, because when we get the belts of 780, we'll have no problem, and we'll put buffers in between then. Because with a buffer, if we have a buffer like right here, you might say to yourself, well, if this was a belt of 780 going in, and the belt stopped, then this will accumulate the extra material, and then it'll all go in when the train moves away and the belt flows again. But that's not true, because we can never catch up to the 780 per minute. We can't get ahead of it. In order to actually overfill it again, we'd have to provide more than 780, right, to be able to drain the box into there. So it's actually impossible, and it was a revelation of mine in my previous series. I just couldn't believe it. I designed a factory with 780 in mind going into train stations, and I realized, before we actually turned it on, I was like, this is never going to work. So that's why trucks are actually really good, because they transfer, and the belts can feed in while they transfer, which is really nice. But trains can't do that. Anyway, I've sat around here long enough. What we're going to do now is get our floor holes, like so. So I'm going to cut away this bit here, and we'll just go with a 2-meter foundation. I'll just pop a floor hole right before each one. So we got to do that now for every platform. Now, I haven't built down here. This is actually in my old save, my old playthrough. This is where I built a giant aluminum factory. And I remember it was kind of awkward dealing with these like little dunes to get things like level and nice. So we'll just have to throw down some concrete foundations and try to choose a height that seems reasonable. So it has to be above the highest dune, which might be this one. Yeah, that seems good. Seems like a good height. So I was on the world grid there. I wonder, is it the same with this one? Because that's, again, really low down, I feel like. But maybe. So it won't look like it works until we look at it. No, yeah. Oh, damn. Damn. Probably good enough. Yeah, that seems like it's okay. So we'll have to just rotate it out a different way and send it up and around onto the platform. Alright, so again, my recording software is playing havoc. I had to reload the game. But basically, we have our 3 miners now out on the right side. We have our floor holes in position. Our train running between the 2 platforms, I guess, or stations. We have 3 more miners out here. And I'm just in the process now of making sure that they are overclocked to be doing 300 output each. Right, so the power shards are now all in place, and I'm kind of winging it a little bit, right? So I'm just going to be pulling these down with some conveyor lifts. I guess to around here. They'll probably need buffers each, right, as well. The buffers will probably be better suited to being placed down here rather than upstairs, especially now that we've actually done the floor holes thinking about it, so that's kind of a no-brainer. So each miner is to have its own lift, yeah? And we might pull in some extra iron from afar so that we can get these up to the 300 per belt threshold, or the 600 per carriage threshold that we're kind of trying to get to. No, it was actually the exact amount I needed, but I'll have to go get some more anyway to do the rest of the belts. But what we're looking to do now is try to get 600 to go into each one of these containers. That's effectively what I'm trying to do. So, and this is the back, and that's the front. Yeah, so let's try to get 600 from the back all the way to the front. 300 only needs to be in that container. In fact, just to kind of illustrate that, even for my own sanity, I'm going to make this a regular size container. And that way it's quite clear that this is the one that does 300 and all the other ones are doing 600. Right, so in order to do that, what we'll have to do is put down a second floor hole somewhere here. Damn, after patching all these in. So these will have to be 2 foundations yet again. Right, so we'll patch these back in as 2-meter foundations, no problem. Then we'll have to grab another floor hole and just put them right behind each one. Now, we don't actually need to do it for that one. That only needs 1 input, that'll be fine. It's all the other 4 that do. And in future, it won't need this actually at all. It could just all be handled by 1 belt, but that's just where we're at right now. So this can now come up to here. And we'll just use Mark 1 right now because I don't have the encased industrial beams with me, but I'll upgrade it in a moment. Yeah, so that one doesn't need any. And then we just continue that in there. Alright, cool. So now, downstairs, the mergers will have to go. We don't need a merger here, actually, so that's not necessary. Right, so with the 2 lifts going down, that'll be 300 on each belt. So we need to now get the 300 out of these 2 miners and send them in. So I'm just going to bring this to guess this is the point we're looking at getting to, so we'll just curve it like that, send it right underneath, and then send it in. So that's 300 done. We can't merge them because, like I said, we can't handle 600 per minute. We'll get this to go up straight away. No, we won't do it straight away. We'll do it here. It might look a bit better. So that can curve up and be weird right next to the deposit. That's fine. And then we're nice and rigid from here on. Yeah, so that's our 300 then going over. So that's 600 per minute going into that container, and then 600 per minute leaving the container and going up and into the first platform. So now we need to do the same for the second platform. So it's going to be this miner plus that miner are going to go into this box, which is pretty awkward. It's either that or we just send 300 in and I try to get a matching 300 from out there and send it into the side. I think maybe that might work. So we don't need these mergers anymore. Remember, that can't work actually now. That was a mistake on my part. Let's just send that straight in there. Yeah, you know what? This would actually work nicely. So what we could do here is grab this, pull it down, face it in that way. This one can come out this way. I don't have Mark 1 with me. Or Mark 4, I mean. Oh my god. Yeah, so we'll send in our 300 there. Right, so that's 300 in, pretty straightforward. Curl it like so. Send her in. Bit weird, but whatever. So 300 goes in, and then we're going to be looking to pull in 300 from the distance. I'm going to commit to that. Same with this one, so I'm going to delete that. We'll rotate it around. There we go. So there's our 3 miners out in the distance, all feeding up to these 3 inputs. So they just need to go into each respective container. So we can just drag this along, and the closest one in, just like that. This can then just come all the way down. Maybe stop there. And I'm out of iron plates now. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make a run for materials. I suppose actually I'll just use whatever I've got and then update it to be correct in a moment. They're all gonna be Mark 4 anyway. So this will have to go. I'm just trying to think, is that alright to go into the bottom one? Yeah, that's okay. You go into the bottom one there. And then you're gonna have to go into the top one, so we're gonna need to give you a little helping hand. Actually, we could start even there, thinking about it. Just rotate it. Right, that's way messier than I thought, but that's why I said I was kind of winging it. Right, so each miner is doing 300 per minute. It eventually will be capable of doing 600, but for now, we're doing 300 per minute. So, because of that, I've got containers here. If it's a large container, it means it's taking in 600. If it's a small container, it means it's taking in 3. Ultimately, the goal is to get each freight platform to be receiving 600, except for the first one, which only needs 300, right? So these all have to be 600 per minute. That only needs to be 300. Now, because we're only able to use Mark II miners, it's not possible currently to get 2700 out of this area. We will have to pull in iron from somewhere else, just temporarily, until we can upgrade it to Mark III, and then we can sever that connection. So I'm happy for that connection to look kind of not that great, because I don't think we're actually that far away from Mark III miners, because we've done all the milestones now. Now it's about doing the next space elevator, and after that we can kind of rush towards Mark III miners, I think. So we'll try to do that. And that way we can actually upgrade a lot of things, like the original coal plant, and we'll, I guess we'll need an aluminum factory, but once that's done, then we can truly say like everything can be upgraded to max belts and max miners, really, at that point. It's just about supplying the power then. Anyways, right, so what we've got is, if we stand here, it might be a good spot. So this miner and this miner combine to go into 600 to go into platform number 5, right? Platform number 4 is receiving 300 from this miner and 300 from the desert, as it currently stands. Platform number 3 is receiving both of its 600 material, or both its 300 from the desert. So platform 3 is left alone. Platform 2 is receiving 600 from 2 of the miners, that one and that one. And then platform 1 is receiving just 300 because that's all it needs from that one miner there. And that's it. That's the situation. That's how it works. Yeah, so here they are. Pure nodes. So I'm just going to clear the... Oh, don't have enough room to clear it. Let's drop that for a sec. Clear the stone on top. If we basically make these 450 each, we should be able to get the 900 required to meet the shortfall that we have currently, which is 900. So our best belt is 480, so we can get 480 per minute each out of them, or underclock them to get 450, and then do some belt shenanigans to sort that out. What I'm thinking of doing, because it's a bit of a distance, I might set up a truck just to run between the two areas, because there's also coal over there. So we could just automate a little truck going back and forth. I know people love trucks, but I do, so that might be something I do. Alright, let's have a look at this then. So it's 240 per minute. And we need to go to 450. So that's 480. Yeah, so 450 per minute is all we need, technically. So we could do that. Don't have what I need for this other one, do I? Oh no, power shard wise I'm out. I'll have to go find some slugs. Alright, not the most elegant looking thing ever, but it should work. Don't have any power right now though. Get the truck right there. Load it with coal. We'll set this to load for the truck. That should be fine. Cool. So I'll have to just map this out. But yeah, those two are going to fill that up with 450 per minute. And then this truck is just going to drive down to our location, pull in, do a little loop, unload, and then we'll have to work out how we're going to split that ore into the 3 freight platforms that we're aiming for. Alright, I think I've got it worked out. So I've upgraded all the belts to be tier 4, and we're just going to pretend, just assume that they're doing 75 per minute, just to make the math go easier. So this is 75 per minute, and this is 75 per minute. Let's just pretend. If that was the case, then the first belt hits its splitter here, and we're splitting, 3 ways now. So that's 25, 25, and 25. So 2 lots of 25 is 50 going into that container. 1 lot of 25 just sits there. The other belt comes down, splits 3 ways, 25, 25, and 25. Gives us our 50. Gives us our 50 when combined with the other 25. And that way we've got 50 going into every box, so it's an even split. So now when we deal with the true number, which is 450 and 450, at least logically speaking, that should be what's going in there per minute. You know, obviously the belts are 480, so 480 will attempt to get out on both of them. But overall, by sending in 450 per minute on the other end, we can basically say that's 450, 450, and that means that we're splitting evenly then to get 300, 300, and 300, all going upstairs. So a little bit of faffery on that one, but that is the logistics now done for this area. I need to go get a little bit more material, and then we can at least set up that truck for the coal route. Damn, the train is just gone. I might wait till it comes back then. Alright, that's a little bit better. We can finally see down here, and then we have our little asphalt ramp that leads up. We turn around, we come back out, and we just basically roll down that way. So now I need to basically draw power, or drag power all the way out there and hook this place up to power as well. I don't really know if I want to actually turn things on properly, but I'd like to at least get the route going and just feed it into this area, but maybe I won't power. Yeah, maybe we'll leave the deliveries off. Oh my god, I just realized something. This isn't a coal deposit. It's just a lump of rubble. Oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. I've never made that mistake before. It looks just like a coal deposit, basically. Yeah. Crap. This whole thing hinged on the fact that there was coal nearby. We're gonna have to look for it. Oh no. Damn. I feel like such an idiot because there's like no coal anywhere around in this biome. It's like way in the distance, so alright, we're gonna have to scrap the truck station idea and just run the belts all the way back. Now remember, like I said, once we get to tier 3 or mark 3, all of this can be separated and deleted anyway, because there'll be more than enough over there. It's just temporary until we do that. So that's why I thought, oh, it's kind of nice I don't have to run a belt massively if I could just draw a truck or bring a truck right over there, but didn't have any fuel nearby, so that's my bad. Alright, that was quite a bit of effort, but I've now got power towers leading all the way out and 2 belts coming back in from our lovely little miners out there. All of that planning for nothing. Anyways, let's line these up with where they gotta go, which is just, I'm gonna just send it straight to the output they were going to anyway. Oh, but there we go. Finally done. Just needs to be powered on. What the hell is he doing to my truck? Just trying to think if I've forgotten anything. Not really. I'd need to obviously just power things. So I think what I'll do is I'll power this side. I'm fine with that, but I'm not going to run the train anymore. until the episode where we turn everything on. Yeah, because I don't want to start flooding the place with iron ore until we turn everything on at once. It's just more fun that way. So we'll keep the train in my pocket until the next episode when we deploy it and turn everything on. But for now, I think what I can do, because this place has power, I've actually never done this before. I normally just extend it myself, but I think you can draw power out from here now. Yeah, that works. So I'll tell you what then. Do we have more stuff for power towers? Yep, loads. I might change the placement or something, but just for now, extend that into here. Send that. Sure, why not? Send it right there. And then this needs to connect to 1, 2, 3. So there we go. They're all powered on now, overclocked out of their minds. And they're basically just going to be filling up the stations as well as their buffer containers. Now, I guess as well what we need to do is just buff this up to Mark 4, Mark 4. Like that. And just make sure all of these are Mark 4 as well. I think the bottom ones are. Cool, we can see that flowing up now. Looks like there's an issue with that one. Might be a belt gap or something. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. That's Mark 4, Mark 4. Yeah, we're all good. Alright, cool. The next one then would just be to hook this tower up so that we can get power all the way out there. Pretty straightforward. We could just connect this one directly into its buddy. Although the lines are a bit messed up that way. Don't want to be in the way of the train. I'll probably just move this myself, but just for now, just to get these operational, let's do that. Whatever. Also, did I connect to the bottom? I did, weirdly. There. That should be still clear enough away from the train. The train doesn't take up more than a foundation. It's not going to spill over the rails that much. Sweet. Alright, man, what an ordeal. What an ordeal. It took way longer than I thought. And that's what happens. You go into something without a plan. And it's a disaster. That's why I do out my floor plans and I do testing in-game to make things go smoother during the recording as well. But I guess with clever editing, hopefully you didn't see too much of it. Right, anyways, so I'm going to make my way back now, pretty much. Well, we'd like to see the iron ore traveling along. It's part of the payoff, isn't it? Smooth. Love to see it. 300 per minute on the belts. And eventually, going to be 600. And then we can cut away that external belt feeding that we're doing. That'll be the first thing I do. The first thing I'm going to do when I get Mark 3 miners is come to this place and destroy that, because that's heinous. I hate that kind of thing. But that actually fits in nicely with why do trains at all? Well, you could just have really long belts to do the same thing if you prefer. So, if you don't mind doing that. And most people, to be honest, don't even put it on a foundation. So, it is what it is. But there you go. We have our ore coming in. Interesting that there's no gaps. Oh yeah, that's because it's 450 per minute, isn't it? Yeah. So this is now going to split. Do its little jiggery pokery and reconfigure itself to get in there. So now we should see that these 3 belts, this one, and this one, are all traveling at the same rate, basically. Ah. Should probably hook these up as well. Nice. Cool. Alright, so that's the mining operation aspect of this build done. We're pulling in all the iron ore, feeding it up to a train. The train's now going to pull it back down and into the main factory. And the final thing we have to do for today's episode is just configure the logistics for taking it out and feeding it into the foundries. Then the next episode we'll do all of the constructors that will go upstairs and turn everything on, I guess. It's just a lot to keep track of in my head, sorry. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. For you, I guess no time has passed, but for me, quite considerable time has passed, and I realized that the end of my recording didn't save. So I've got a little, I might have mentioned it or kept it in or edited it out, I don't know, but basically, every time the game autosaves, my recording stops. So at least I know that now, and I've known it for a little while, but I missed it on the last one. I just must have looked away or something, just didn't consider hitting re-record. Anyways, thankfully it was towards the end of the episode, and all I've done now is hooked up the logistics, and it's funny, I had said, when I thought I was recording, I'm not going to show this, so it didn't matter anyway, but what I have lost is me explaining how this works, so I'm just going to re-explain it. So very quickly, we've got, and the reason I didn't show it, by the way, is because it was a lot of trial and error, but now it's nice and organized, fairly neat, fairly clean, so we can easily explain it. It's just, trust me, it'd be better than what I had to go through to get it done. Which was, put a belt here, it doesn't look good. Put a belt here, no, I'm not happy. You know, and just go over that like many times over. So this way, you just get to see the final result, and it's pretty straightforward. It's just a few belts. Right, so we've got, let's call these are our Foundry groups, right? There's 3 rows of them. So row number 1, 2, and 3. And then we have freight platform 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah? So each freight platform is taking in 600 iron ore per minute on the opposite end, right, where we're doing the outpost. That's how much the miners are producing and feeding in. Of course, there's a train and a buffer on the other side, but ultimately the production amount that you make is the most important number, because ultimately that's what everything is obeying, right? 600 per minute is going into here. So the goal is to get 300 per minute onto 3 belts in each row. 1, 2, and 3 in each row. So to do that, if 600 per minute is coming in, broadly speaking, then we have a belt coming out here and a belt coming out here and going into a buffer. So that should be 300 per minute and 300 per minute and so on, right, onto these 2 belts that continue on. Why is there a buffer? Well, if a train arrives, obviously these belts are going to stop feeding and will be pulling out of the buffer. Now, the reason that that works is because these belts are capable of going faster than 300 per minute. It's 480 per minute, 480 per minute. So we're able to drain the storage of this faster than the miners are producing stuff, sending it in. And because, well, kind of, there's a buffer on the other side basically doing the same thing. But, you know, just broadly speaking, just take my word for it. I'm sure 90% of people get it. But we're draining it faster, okay? So it's like we're taking 480 out when really we're only producing 300. And eventually we would, like, run out then, you know? But because of the stop-start nature of trains, this belt will stop, this belt will stop, and thanks to the buffer being, quote, overfilled, we'll still be draining the buffer while we wait for the train to kind of do its business, come around again, and repeat the cycle. So anyways, long story short, 300, 300. If we follow these belts really quickly, we can see that the bottom belt is traveling all the way along the bottom. It hits a lift, which goes into the bottom belt here. The top belt on this layer continues along, and then it goes into the middle one. Fairly straightforward, nothing too complicated. Leaves us with our first problem, which is, if we've got 300, 300 out of every output, it means that we need to get another 300 and send it over to that side. And that just has a cascading effect going further down. So to do that, we have a belt traveling along the bottom. This one is just going straight up into its own row right in front of it, just like the other side. But now its top belt is traveling along here, going up and over on a lift, and going all the way into that top slot. So that's happening now. Now I'm about to have an autosave, which is going to kill my recording, so I have to hit record again in just 1 sec. So that autosave thing, it's not just this game. There's other games that are now having this issue, excuse me, where my recordings are being interrupted. In Manor Lords, it happens when I hit the pause menu. So if I never pause the game, it's fine. Well, not pause it, but if I never open the pause menu, it's fine. So it's just, there's something weird going on with the NVIDIA GeForce overlay, I guess, where it's being interrupted by certain things that are happening in games, I guess. I don't know. And it's a bit of a trial and error to figure out what's going on with it. I really love the NVIDIA recording because it keeps the file sizes quite low while maintaining quite a high quality image and very low impact to the game while recording. Whereas if you record with something like OBS, you take a much more significant hit to your frame rate, and the file sizes seem to be larger, despite the quality seeming to be the same. So that's just why I use it, in case anyone's ever wondering. It used to be called Shadow Play back in the day. Anyways, just continuing on here. So we know the bottom belt is going into that bottom line. This belt is going up and over, so we move to the next row over. So this industrial storage container. I've got so many distractions right now. There's an ice cream truck outside, and it's like, damn, do I go get some ice cream? No, it's not just that. It's quite loud, basically. Blares it right outside my window. Damn kids with their ice creams. Anyways, this belt traveling along the bottom turns and goes up and over into the middle, and subsequently the belt on top goes up and over and into the top bit, right? So because we've already fed that one from the bottom, then we're left with the 2 on top to feed. Almost finally, we then have these 2 coming out. Bottom one travels along, takes a little left turn, and goes into the middle. Slightly different. And then this one travels along the top and goes into the top. And then finally, the belt on the very end is just a small container, because all we're getting out of this platform, platform number 1, is 300 per minute. So platform number 1 goes into number 1, and it feeds right into the bottom belt, which is there. And that's basically how that works. Oh man. Right. So anyway, I don't know if I actually showed it, but Because, yeah, I don't think I did, thinking about it. It's probably a bit silly of me, but... Yeah, actually, I just realized, I'm not sure I ever explained this, and it's really hard to see because it's really nestled in there, but if we were to follow one of these 300 belts, you know, we hit a splitter, and we split 3 ways. But it's really just manifold. It's not load balanced splitting, so it's like a 300 goes in, hits the splitter, some of it goes down into the machine, some of it goes up and over into the machine on top, the rest of which... Or, well, I shouldn't say the rest, because it's not like an overflow. It's just an even part of that split continues on, and then gets split again 2 more times, going up and over, and then down into a machine. So it's a mini manifold, you know, really. Technically, this machine and that machine would fill slightly slower than the first 2. But then that's it. You know, the next one's over, controlled by a different belt, so... A belt of 300 going in and kind of splitting 4 ways in a bit of an uneven fashion. But anyways, that's going to have to be it for this episode. So basically, in the next one, we're going to build up another floor and do all the constructors. There's going to be 120 in total, and they're going to be built right on top of these foundries, right in line with them. So you'll notice I never did the outputs here, and I haven't done the outputs for the rubber or plastic refineries either. So the next episode is going to be dealing with hooking up the constructors upstairs to getting all of this steel, right? All these steel ingots to make their pipes and their beams. And the good news, at least for people waiting on videos, is that I've already mapped it out. I know exactly where they're going to go. There shouldn't be a problem with it. What I don't know is where all of the stuff is going to go in the end. So we'll have to hook up the refineries for plastic and rubber. And I'm thinking that basically just like in this gap here, right? This big gap here, I'm going to have a truck station. And we're going to have 4 truck stations handling all of the stuff feeding in. I think that's reasonable. I thought about maybe doing trains and bringing this onto a train network, but I just don't think the volume is quite high enough. It's sort of on the edge. So it's 600 per minute for most things, and then 800 per minute for one of them, the steel pipe. So plastic, rubber, and steel beam, all 600 per minute, I think, and then 800 per minute for the steel pipe. So if we looked at the full capacity of, let's say, a station, it's 4,800, I think. Yeah, pretty sure it is. Anyway, 4,800. I just want to make sure of that, actually. No, it's not. Sorry, there's 48 slots. Yes. So it's actually 9,600. So 9,600 divided by the steel pipes, which can hold 200. Everything holds 200, actually, that we're sending in here. Yeah, plastic, rubber, steel pipe, and steel beam. They all hold 200. So our capacity in a station is 9,600 and in a truck. So 9,600 divided by, let's say, 600 going in. That means we have 16 minutes to completely fill one truck station. So I think 16 minutes is a pretty good number, because that's like saying, basically, it's 15 minutes for a truck to make its journey somewhere to a transport hub, unload, and then come back. I think that's plenty of time, because I don't think we're going to build one more than 7 minutes away. And even if we did, or 8 minutes away, and even if we did, we could always just add a second truck. I don't mind doing that for one station. That's okay. It's borderline though, you know, because one of them is doing 800, so that's only 12 minutes. So that would need a second truck most likely, because the idea, as mentioned a long time ago, is that somewhere, probably a little to the north, in that open desert, we'll have a transport hub with a rail connection, and that rail will go all the way down and connect into the grassy fields area where there's going to be a transport hub, probably where that old parts factory is. So everything down here is going to be hoovered up by one giant transport hub and then moved via rail, probably quite a complicated rail system. I imagine it's not just going to be 2 rail lines. It might be even more than that, maybe. I'll have to think about that. I don't know how crazy we want to get. Certainly out of the building itself there's going to be multiple rail. It's like a big rail yard, you know, that's going to then go onto the main bus going around the map. And to achieve that, yeah, this is the idea, like having all these truck stations feeding into it from the bottom. So it's a complicated logistical affair, but if we can get it working, it's going to look awesome. So we're close to it now that we've got rail. But ultimately, what was all this steel for, and what's all this for? Getting to the next space elevator and getting beyond that as well. Doing aluminum and stuff. We're going to need lots of this stuff. But anyway, that's going to have to be it for this episode. I'm really looking forward to the next one where we turn this whole thing on. And yeah, just want to say thanks for all the support on the series so far. And I appreciate I've been really inconsistent with videos. So people holding on and hanging out for videos and stuff like that, I see you. And I'm trying my best to get more out as quick as I can. All right, well anyways, thanks very much for watching. And I will see you in the next one.